Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money Podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money Podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. When we think about retirement, we often focus on the money component. However, our money journey is about so much more. Today, I'm joined by John Kailunas, author, podcast host, and CEO of Regal Holdings of America, to explore how retirement includes fulfillment, purpose, and quality of life. John, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here today.
Thanks, Tony. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I look forward to continuing the discussion we started on your show. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your origin story and how did it lead to your book, Mission Retirement?
Yeah, I've been in the financial service industry since 1988. I'm a first generation immigrant. My mom came here from Latvia. My dad was an insurance guy, so I sort of followed in his footsteps for a little bit and then went on to do more investments. Founded a firm 25 years ago called Regal Financial Group. We have about 27,000 customers and just under $4 billion. We serve middle America and the advisors that serve the middle America sort of niche. And one of the things we found out is that we are rushing and working so hard and trying to get to retirement, but we don't spend any time planning for it. And so that was sort of the catalyst for Mission Retirement, making sure that we can sit down and plan a proper retirement and it's somebody's name and likeness, right? To further what they want to leave behind.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The whole financial services industry is all about saving for retirement. I mean, about more things than that, but that's a pretty, the big focus. But now we have a lot of people who are retiring, and it's like, now what? So, I mean, the book is very timely.
Yeah, there's 10 missions in the book, as you know, Tony. And I think one of the ones that, well, sort of the catalyst of the book was when we started doing we spoke at a conference, my co-author, Kevin Berwald, we spoke at a conference and someone approached us afterwards and said, I'd really like to have a resource that would explain people to plan their retirement. And of course, when we hear that, we think of the alpha, beta, standard deviation, risk tolerance, and all that stuff. But he was talking more about the components of retirement and the sense of what do you do, what's your purpose, your legacy. And so we started doing some research and we found out, and this is sort of troubling, that 40% of all retirees end up being lonely. And I was thinking to myself and my clients and saying, is that the goal? I mean, we're working 30 or 40 years to be lonely. And I just thought that was a horrible thing. And we started digging more and more and found out that, over 10 hours a day, retirees use either watching TV or just sitting idly, not progressing or not doing anything. And as we all know, that sort of non-active lifestyle, physically and mentally, can make a toll and actually hurt you in retirement from a longevity standpoint.
Yeah, no, I also understand it also has an impact on health as well. All that inactivity, and then you get into your health span in retirement that you work all these years and then you're not able to enjoy any of it because of your health. And I know this, what you're talking about has been a real conversation, is thinking about that purpose. So, what are some of the questions that people should be asking themselves about planning out their retirement? What should they be
Well,
thinking about?
our book, Mission Retirement, has 10 missions in it. The first one is a mission statement, creating like a business has a mission statement. We want the client to develop a retirement statement. And the way we've designed this book, Kevin and I, is that at the back of each chapter, there's spaces to you write notes to the questions that we have. It's sort of a workbook type of format. It's a very simple read. It's about 130 pages, 10 seconds, 10 sections. So there's not a lot of, there's 7 to 12 pages per section. And they cover from your hobbies to who you want to be surrounded in retirement, what your legacy is going to be, what you want your legacy to be, I should say, how stewardship, how are you going to be a steward, those type of things. And we go through each one of those chapters with, again, the questions at the back of the chapters so you can write in your thoughts and ideas. And also there's other resources in the back of the chapters that you can dig yourself, dig deeper into the details if you'd like.
Well, that's great. Do you want to go into, maybe one of the sections that you think is the most important for people to think about?
I think it's the mission statement. The first one is sort of clearing the path. I've been married for 30 years, and if you ask my wife to do the chapter and myself to do the chapter, and we know each other like the back of each other's hand, we'd have different answers. And I think it's a really great exercise for spouses to go through because we all say we want to maybe go fishing or go golfing more, whatever. Well, that's 6 months to a year. We all say we want to travel the world, but you know, it's difficult as your health decreases, right? So you've got to front pack your travel. And then it's managing all of the risk, right? Because money just gives you, from a financial standpoint, it just gives you the liberty to do the things you want. So the mission statement to come back in full circle, I think is the most important thing because it sets a foundation of what you believe in. Do you want an active retirement? Do you want to have a legacy? I know a lot of people that have retired and they don't have a purpose. And when you don't have a purpose to get up every day, the days get longer and they get sadder and they get lonelier. So if you're gonna help with the local, Boys and Girls Club, you're gonna mend some fences maybe with an old friend or spend time with them. Those are all things that you need to think about and then write out a plan for it. And when I say a plan, again, they're just bullet points really of how you're gonna live and how you're gonna work in the future when you have an extra 40 to 60 hours a week. We go from working 40 to 60 hours a week and then all of a sudden we don't. And so all of that time, what is it, how are you going to use that time with your time, talent, and resources?
Yeah, and I think that's something, I've thought about that myself is, like, okay, well, a lot of my identity is tied up in my work and the work that I do, and I really enjoy what I do, but it is a big part of that. I mean, is that part of it too, is like making that transition? Because I have to imagine, especially for people who are high achievers, uh, you know, in their careers, it's like, how do you make that transition?
Well, you look at a financial service guy like you or myself, one of the easy ways is we both know that financial literacy is horrible in the United States, right? So, maybe you create a PowerPoint for a grade school or a high school and come in as a guest speaker and you rotate around your district. Again, that's not a heavy lift. You and I can do that, and probably a lot of the listening audience can do that with their eyes closed. But imagine how impactful that would be for a fifth or sixth grader just to understand the concept of time value of money or how savings and some basic things work, how do you pay a bill? Those basic things that aren't being taught. I think there's a huge void for talented people like yourself and others to step in there and help that next generation. That's just one idea off the top of my head.
What I like that is that you're sharing your talent in retirement. It is, and as you point out, there's a lot of nonprofits and service organizations and schools that can use help that they don't have to, that they can't afford to pay for it. And
Yeah,
so
one of the things
that's a
that
great use of time.
my kids are adults and they're well on their way. My daughter's a DNP and doing well, and my son's in a doctorate program for strategic leadership, and he works for a tech company. And we're starting this year with having a family meeting. I'm 61. My wife is older than I am, but we're starting a family meeting, and we're going to talk about. We have a donor advised fund set up, and I'm going to take requests from them regarding their passions to see how and what we support in the local community. We live in Tampa. So what are we going to support in Tampa and be part of that'll set keep our family together from a morals and ethical standpoint, right? And a purpose standpoint. And I'll be able to help pass down some of the things that my wife and I believe to our children, or continue to do that, but also to establish a giving pattern for themselves. And so I'm going to run it almost like an office meeting, like you and I've run hundreds before, but with a purpose of giving back and to give somebody. So that's one of the ways what we're doing as a family.
Yeah, so I mean, it is a great opportunity to give back. I want to go back to something you said about financial literacy. I mean, you and I both know, and pretty much, most of my audience are people who are enthusiastic about financial literacy. It's not really working. The needle hasn't moved around the world much in the last 20 years, and billions of dollars have been spent, millions of hours have been spent. So, interestingly enough, a friend of mine just wrote an article called "Is Financial Literacy Dead? Is it time to move to financial fluency?" And her argument, her name is Bernadette Choi. So watchers and listeners have heard her on the podcast, and she's going to come on just to talk about this. But John, but her point is financial fluency is about learning a new language, and that maybe that's reframing that we need for talking about money. I mean, how does that strike you? Does that resonate?
I've never heard the term before, but as I'm saying it, I'm processing it, and I think that has some legs. It's a very interesting concept. It is a different language. It's a different mindset. And there's been some great books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? About that and trying to encompass some things with our younger generation, and it hasn't taken. So a new approach I'm welcome to, and teaching it almost like a language would make a lot of sense to people. I don't have a lot of faith in the school system that they're going to be able to do it themselves. So, talented people like the author, like you just mentioned, people like yourself, and it makes a lot of sense to carry that baton.
Yeah, it makes sense to me because one of the other points she made too is that illiteracy tends to shame people, but nobody's
Yeah,
ashamed because they don't know how to speak German. Well, maybe you do know how to speak German.
maybe if
I
you're
don't, but
German and you can't speak German, that'd be a problem.
well, there's people in the US who may not speak English that well, so we don't need to go there. But let's just assume, that you could speak your native
I'd like to
language.
see it come back almost like as a home ec course.
I agree. I don't know about you, but I did have a home ec course, and part of that course was learning how to balance a checkbook and, to balance your bank statement. And that is a tool that I know how to do that I don't think many young people know how to do. Um, you
No,
know,
they go to their ATM, and if it has money, they pull it out. They don't reconcile their bank statements. They look at what's on the screen. So yeah, we're in dire need of some help.
Definitely, definitely. Well, let's talk about friction for a minute because you bring up a very good point. Is you and I are of a generation that, at least for me, I predate ATMs. I remember the days where, I'd get a paycheck, I'd go to the bank, and if I wanted cash for the weekend, I had to make sure I got to the bank before Friday, before the bank
Yeah.
closed, to get some cash. And then if I wanted to buy something, I had to go to whatever store it was. And I actually had to have enough cash in my pocket to buy that thing. So, it was a lot of work to actually go buy something. I mean, do you think that's made a difference too? Especially for young people, there's not that friction.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I never really thought about it, but I hate going to the bank now. I almost refuse to. I try to do everything direct, and if we do have to go to the bank, my wife usually does it for me because I just hate the task, and I don't like going shopping anymore. I have a philosophy that I'm a buyer, and I just go and buy what I want. I do my research on the internet if it's a bigger purchase, and I go in and it's like I want this and this and this, and I have a good idea what it should cost, and if it's in that range, I pay for it and I leave. I want transactions easy. Now I've gotten lazy because, we don't have that friction, as you're terming it, in the modern day world. That's obviously made the younger consumer a little lazier in the sense of the ease, right? There's less time to think about the transaction. When you're walking to the bank, and you cash in your paycheck, you have time to think about if you're going to make that unnecessary purchase or that fun purchase for the weekend, using your example. Whereas now it's a point and click and it's at your doorstep. Literally, it could be the same day. You don't have any, I mean, there's no, Amazon asks you, are you okay with this? And you say yes, and it's all within, 10 seconds and the item's purchased. So you don't really have a lot of buyer's remorse or thoughtfulness going into a purchase. It's such a smoother and quicker transaction nowadays. It's less mental skew I think we're putting towards it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what you said is, that you don't have that lag of taking the time to think about it. And another friend of mine talks about that is, just taking a minute, take 30 seconds before you buy something, wait a beat. I've heard other people, recommend that you wait a day before you make a purchase, something
Well,
like that.
I noticed in the thinking about what you said is, I mean, um, where my business is located, I had a third story condo. I would have my food delivered to my doorstep. And I never thought about how much the case of diet soda or, 12 pack of beer weighed because I didn't have to carry it anymore. It was just easy. I would click it and would be at my doorstep literally 2 hours later. I didn't have to worry about going up the stairs or up the elevator or carrying it and parking the car and doing all that, and how easy it was to buy things. And if you're on a tight budget, that can be very, very detrimental to your long-term financial health.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, let's walk back to retirement statement real quick, is because I think, one of the things I want to make sure we talked about is how this can benefit advisors as well as the advisors' clients. So, one of the things I know you talk about is the connection with advisors and clients. So, how does creating a retirement statement help an advisor better connect with their clients?
Well, I think some of this is generational. The overall viewpoint I would give you is that it allows the advisor to understand the client at a much deeper level. It forces the client to think exactly specifically what retirement's going to look like instead of getting an opaque answer of I'm going to golf more or I'm going to travel. Now it's, I want to travel to, well, example my wife and I have, we're going to Antarctica this year. In seventh grade, I wrote this essay. I wanted to go to all seven continents. So, I'm 61 years old. I'm not getting any younger. So I decided to pull the trigger before retirement here. But, saying I'm going to travel or telling my financial planner I'm going to Antarctica, they're the same answer, but they're vastly different in the perception of what how the financial advisor is perceiving it. He's probably thinking I'm going to go visit my grandchildren, right? He's not planning that I'm going to take, a private plane and all this crazy stuff I've got to do to get to Antarctica. It's a better way for the advisor, from the advisor, to get an understanding of the demands that may be put on a portfolio. Um, because all money, as I said earlier, just gives you liberty to get what you want. I think for the younger advisors, I don't think, and this is not a knock, it's just the way they've been brought up. They've been brought up much more on the technical side of the financial planning industry, where you and I have been brought up more on the art side, meaning we're more apt to ask those touchy-feely questions and dig down deeper. The G2 advisors are much more of a hard, fast, and straight line question. So when we do a fact finder, we're asking them why or how or why would you want to go to Antarctica? What was the seventh grade? We'll ask that question. They'll just put travel down and go to the next question. So they're much more analytical. And much more deliberate in their questions. And I think this book, if a financial advisor, and we can white label it for the financial advisor, if they get a copy of this book and give it to all of their seminar people or all their clients as a gift, the conversations they're going to have are going to be incredibly deep and meaningful, and they're organic. They don't have to work at them. The client will go through the book and say, okay, hobbies. This is what I want to do for my hobbies. This is what I want to do here and there. Um, it's a great way of getting to know somebody at a much deeper, more meaningful level than a standard fact finder.
I love that. And I think that's something, I mean, when we talk about the implementation of AI, that we're going to need to have those meaningful relationships with our clients because so much of that analytical work can just already be done by AI. So it's the
Correct.
advisors who have that human touch and connection, I think, are the ones who are going to survive.
Yeah, I had on my podcast that an industry legend, Joe Jordan, just a magnificent guy. And Joe was saying to me, now Joe's in his early 70s. He's done everything he actually brought life insurance into the wirehouses back in the day,
Oh,
and
wow.
insurance products. So he's a born and raised a New Yorker. He's quite a character and very, very brilliant. Joe was gracious enough with his time, and he said something that stuck out to me. I think it's appropriate here. He says AI is not going to replace a financial advisor. It will replace financial advisors that don't use AI. And I think it's
I
really
like
true. It
that.
goes right to your point where, you AI is a tool that we use, but it's never going to be able to have the empathy, the compassion, and the listening skills that we can have working with a client trying to determine what they really want to do and how they want to do it.
Yeah. Well, I love that because I think a lot of advisors can succeed in the age of AI, but that they are going to really have to provide value to their clients. So,
I think that's the value. Um, when we started in the business, Tony, I started in '88. Information, if you had information, it was very powerful, right? And when we went independent 25 years ago, we had to buy research, right? Now you can go on your iPhone and pick up anything you want in 2 seconds flat by a basic Google search, and it's solid information. And it's now the interpretation of that information for clients that I think they find of huge value because you're sort of you've got a map, right? You can get a map for free, but the map doesn't teach you how to go through certain tricky areas of a geographical location. So that's what a financial advisor does. It helps you walk through those areas, and there's a true value to that. The good advisors are going to make more money because their skills are going to be much more heightened and in demand as we commoditize and gaining information. It's my
I
belief.
love that. Now, I love that. The interpretation of the information provides value. And I think it gets back to what you were talking about earlier is, when I think about, going back to the days, people who are selling a lot of insurance or the top advisors, the rainmakers, they're always the ones who could form that personal relationship, on top of the product knowledge and everything else.
Those are the people that were special. Those are, I always say it's a science and an art, right? A paraplanner, right, was just dealing with the facts. It wasn't dealing with the person. And now if I was a paraplanner, I'd be afraid of my job because AI is going to replace me. But the advisor, not at all, because I still believe, even in my children who do everything on the internet and are 27 and 30, they're still going to want to talk to an advisor. Proof and
I think.
point. Look at how old LegalZoom is, right? And we've all used it in some capacity, but that's not our attorney. You know,
Or hopefully it's not your attorney.
yeah, no, we go online and we use it. We use it for small transactions and stuff, but that's not who we call. And so I think we're going to see that type of separation. I think the vanguards of the world, great firms, they're going to take that lower computer entry. There's some software companies out there that might capture some market share, but you're still going to need a living and breathing person to help you after you've saved for 40 years or 30 years, or you're facing a health crisis or a financial crisis. You go through a divorce and all your plans are cut in half or shattered, right? So yeah, AI is not going to help you with that. They might give you a generic answer to steer you to some proper questions with a financial advisor, but it's not going to take the place of a financial advisor.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm seeing that with the fintechs that I've worked with, and I'm aware of, they're not pure play fintechs. They're using CFPs as part of the planning process or financial coaches, depending on the platform, of course.
And that's what I'm excited because I think that's a great spot, right? You don't lose the human touch, but the tools that we have now available at our hands to do things for clients are absolutely incredible compared to what we had 20 years ago. It's light years. It's made our job easier. It's made us much more efficient, effective, and it's made us um, have our time, the quality of our personal lives back. So
Yeah.
there's good pluses to it.
Yeah, 100%. So, next part of the show is, this is quick. They're called the Get Ready Hot Take Trio, and these are three quick questions I ask all of my guests. The first one is, what myth are you trying to break about retirement?
I guess the myth I was trying to break of retirement would be that you need to have purpose in your retirement. And it's not just sitting on your keister. It's not sitting there watching TV. It's about getting out and helping people and being progressive in your thought process because you could literally live for another 30, 40 years. And without a mission statement, without a purpose in retirement, that's going to make you lonely. Going back to what we talked about earlier. If you don't have purpose, you're going to be lonely. And what a sad way to live your last 30 years. So, retirement needs to have a purpose.
Love it. I completely agree. So let's get out the time machine now, John. What advice would you give your younger self knowing what you know now about money?
I probably would be more disciplined in my approaches. I was raised Roman Catholic, and as I've gotten older, I've been reading heavily in the Stoics, and I really like
Hmm.
the Stoic approach to things. So, as Stoics believe that discipline is sort of the core belief of a lot of things, I think I'd be more disciplined, and it doesn't take much, but a little more discipline, I don't think's ever hurt anybody in that time machine.
Yeah, that's funny. Is Stoics have come up a few times on this podcast recently. I think there's definitely a movement towards revisiting it. I mean, there's a reason why they've been around a couple thousand years.
It's classic, it's timeless, and it's just pragmatic sense when you listen to it. I find it fascinating how now there's someone's captured it and sort of repackaged it and made it very very plentiful to find on the internet.
Oh yeah, it's all over the place. So the last question is, what is your number one tip for changing the way we think about money?
I think the number one tip is to think of money as a tool. It's not anything to be afraid of. It's not anything to admire or respect. It's simply a tool, like a carpenter has a hammer. Money gives you liberty to make the decisions you want. And I think we view money not in that manner overall as society. I think it scares a lot of people. I think people are intimidated for it. I think some people have too much greed for it, right? But if we use it as a tool, like a carpenter uses a hammer, I don't see, I see that the way to use it.
I love it. And I completely agree with you. I mean, we fill it up with so many things, but it's a vessel. It's a means of value. And you can even get paid in beads or whatever, barter. I
Yeah,
mean,
I know
people don't barter
carpenters that
much.
like, I know that carpenters like their hammers. I don't know any of them that love them. And I know people that are in love with their investment accounts or have emotional attachments. And that's what we want. It's just a tool. And it's important. Don't get me wrong. It's important, especially in a capitalist society, but it's not the beginning and end all of who you should be or what you should be.
Definitely, definitely. So, John, where can people learn more about you, your podcast, and pick up their own copy of Mission Retirement?
Certainly, if you'd like to pick up just a single copy of Mission Retirement, you can just go to Amazon and look under Mission Retirement. Look under the last name Berwald, Berwald. It's a lot easier to spell than Kailunas, which is Kailunas. So Berwald or Kailunas, and it's Mission Retirement. If you'd like bulk copies for your clients, or your church or your retirement community. We can white label these, meaning we can have you write the forward. We help you do it. And then your name and cover gets changed. We put your face on the cover and we put it in your corporate colors. You can call us at Catalyst catalystforgrowth.org. That's our website. That's a consulting company. Catalyst for Growth, and that's number four, growth.org. And we'll talk to you, show you the process, shows you the costs, and get copies printed to you and drop shipped to you if you want to use them in bulk. If you want to buy them just in bulk, just with our name and likeness, and this is sort of what the book looks like. I'll show a picture there. That book, you can buy it in bulk, and we'll give you a discounted rate. It's fairly expensive on Amazon. Jeff Bezos makes a nice chunk of change off that book. So, if you want to get it in bulk, you get it direct again, catalystforgrowth.org, and that's number four.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, there'll be links to all of the websites and services that John mentioned, so you can check out the book and get hold of John. So, John, thanks for coming on the show today and sharing your insights.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you. And thank you for your mission and what you're trying to accomplish. Again, I think we need to amplify your hypothesis here and getting more things out about money. There's so much out there that I think it paralyzes people. And if with your direction, sort of honing in where people really need to look at certain points of their life is real important. And it's an honor to hear you talk about mission retirement.
I appreciate you coming on. I mean, you're doing great work. I mean, you're serving a lot of people, and I think we really, really need to focus on this mission that you're talking about. Is think about what we're going to do in retirement, because that's the thing. Everybody accumulates all this money, but what's next? So thanks for coming on, and thank you everyone as always for tuning into the Get Ready Money podcast. If this episode helped you change how you think about money and your retirement journey, please be sure to subscribe and to share with a friend. You can also go to my website, tonystewart.com, to join the Get Ready movement and get access to all my tools that are free to help you take control of your financial life. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.